Don't be me. This all began approximately 7 years ago. At that time, I, now 34 years old, had been single for over a year. That is when I met my wife, 27 years old. A one-night stand evolved into a relationship because I was craving human contact. I allowed her to mistreat me and engage in questionable behaviors, such as flirting with other men in front of me, lashing out irrationally, and treating me poorly. At that stage, I had little self-esteem. However, even then, I recognized that I was merely lingering for the physical intimacy and had no intention of making the relationship work. Everything changed when I failed to pull out and inadvertently got her pregnant. After we discovered her pregnancy, I was genuinely thrilled at the prospect of becoming a father. I had never intended to have children, but caring for my nephews shifted my perspective. What I did not foresee was how she would exploit her pregnancy and our child to manipulate and control me. It all started when she became upset about my participation in a co-ed soccer league. I'm unaware of any non-co-ed adult leagues. She argued it was unfair because she could not play while pregnant. She doesn't even participate in sports. Then, she became upset about my drinking, claiming it was unfair that she couldn't. Ironically, at that moment, she was intoxicated. I have evidence of her drinking while pregnant, using cocaine and smoking marijuana. When I confronted her about it, she claimed she planned to have an abortion, so it didn't matter. In the end, she did not have an abortion. Later in the pregnancy, she manipulated me into buying a house with her, threatening to disappear with my child if I refused. So we acquired a house. After our child was born, circumstances did not improve. She remained erratic, constantly griping about anything she could find to complain about. I continued playing soccer, but eventually quit after she would stand behind my car with our child to prevent me from leaving. I realize now that I lacked assertiveness and was behaving passively, but I loved my child dearly and feared losing him. Eventually, I succumbed to the pressure and proposed to her. A month before our wedding, I discovered she had been messaging her ex-flame, making comments like, "What do you think we could have been if things had gone differently?" and accusing me of being abusive. I must clarify that I have never physically harmed her. She cannot say the same about her actions towards me, but I was in a nearly constant state of anger. I am not proud of it, but it is the truth. At this point, she had already alienated me from all my family and friends, making me feel like a trapped animal with nowhere to turn. Upon finding those messages, I immediately began contacting people to call off the wedding. However, I folded again under the pressure of her threats, saying, "I will take our child and disappear." At this moment, I resigned myself to endure over 18 years of torment just to be near my child. The irony is that I got drunk at our wedding because I needed it to get through the day, which led to her calling the police on me for not being intimate with her. Apparently, I continuously stated that I was drunk and simply wanted to sleep, but I do not recall the events. Over the following years, nothing changed, although we did have 2 more children. The insane part is that I loathed her so much that I believe we only had sex a total of maybe 8 times in a 2-year span. She always wanted to, but I couldn't even bear the thought of touching her. During her second pregnancy, my grandfather passed away, and when I attended the funeral, which she did not want me to go to, I received messages from her and her mother saying she was bleeding and going into premature labor. My in-laws were the best part of my marriage, but she manipulated them too. I was thus compelled to leave after attending my grandfather's funeral for only 10 minutes. Sure enough, she got a miraculous shot to stop the labor, of course she did. And to this day, I have yet to see the bill for that. The same situation occurred during her 3rd pregnancy. After my boss took his own life while I was at that funeral, which she similarly attempted to prevent me from attending, she pulled the same stunt. This time, I ignored her and simply turned off my phone. When I returned home, we fought, and I mentioned feeling jealous of my boss, to which she replied that I should just do it and brandished a knife at me. This woman would outright tell my children that their dad did not love them. After our 3rd child, things surprisingly began to improve, significantly. My only complaint was that she expected me to clean and engage with the children after working a 12-hour shift. If I completed one task, she would complain about the other, making it impossible for me to manage both. Nevertheless, things were looking up. She even bought me gifts for my birthday and Father's Day, occasionally prioritized my interests, and sometimes made me lunch for work. Reflecting on it now, she did the bare minimum, but it meant the world to me since I had received nothing prior. With her improved behavior, our intimate life started to revive. That's when she expressed that she might be bisexual and wanted to explore that. Unfortunately, being foolish and thinking with the wrong mindset, I agreed to this under some basic conditions. Hence, we began having threesomes, but eventually, she claimed it was unjust and expressed a desire for a devil's threesome. I firmly told her that was not happening. She may be bisexual, but I am not. That led to arguments, causing our marriage to regress once more. Consequently, we introduced a future explosive element into our marriage, a 24-year-old woman. We were engaging in threesomes when one of our disputes resulted in the other woman not wanting to be with me. It was mutual. My dear wife acted like a frightened animal, and the new girl fell head over heels for her. This was the first time I witnessed my wife act that way. This prompted my wife to say she wanted to date that girl, which I firmly rejected, leading to a heated confrontation where I told the girl to break things off with my wife, and she was willing to do so. My wife went absolutely berserk over this, even attempting to contact my job to get me fired. Eventually, I became exhausted from the drama and permitted them to be friends. For the following week, my wife would leave me alone with the children to spend time with her other friends, a complete fabrication that was easy to see through. Things reached a boiling point when, the following Friday, I packed my belongings while she was out, in an attempt to resolve the situation. She returned and said she would work with me and didn't want a divorce, etc. I did not leave right then, but by the end of the day, she needed a break from the drama and opted to hang out with one of her newly single friends, turning off her location. She was the one who insisted we share our locations and ignoring my texts. The next day, I moved out, and guess who moved in? The new girlfriend, who, by the way, we had known for only 3 weeks at that point. I consulted a lawyer who advised me to move back in to avoid being accused of abandonment. So I complied. I didn't care about anything besides my 3 children. Then began the struggle of them keeping my children from me, taking them away every weekend before I could return home from work, and only bringing them to me at bedtime on weekdays. I barely saw my kids for 4 months. Eventually, my wife had to get a job, so when she was working, her girlfriend began to take the children away, which I had to confront her about to stop, and she became defensive during our exchange while I remained calm. I had to obtain a guardian ad litem, a lawyer for the children, to get the court involved so I could even see my kids. On my first day with them, I intended to take them to my sister's house, and my mother was assisting me in loading them into my van. At that moment, my wife arrived, demanding that I take them to an event instead, to which I responded that I would take them wherever I chose during my time. She then reached for our youngest child, the only one not yet in his car seat, and attempted to flee. My mother, understanding how heartbroken I had been from missing my kids, tried to intervene. This led to my wife crashing into my elderly mother, claiming she had assaulted her, and then calling the police. I only ended up with 2 of my children that day, and the police couldn't take action since the altercation was recorded, and it clearly demonstrated that she was being dishonest. Even the guardian ad litem witnessed the video and agreed it was nonsense. During the following period, I had my children forcibly taken away from me by both of them. The girlfriend set up hidden cameras throughout my house to spy on me. They would conceal items in the girlfriend's car, such as our wagon and stroller, to prevent me from using them when I had the kids. Eventually, I obtained a court order to acquire my own residence. As I was moving, I took half of the diapers and wipes I had purchased that they had tried to hide from me. This led to them stashing the remaining items in the girlfriend's car while I had the children during my wife's working hours. I hadn't fully moved in yet, just a few small items, so I couldn't take my children there. When bedtime rolled around, my middle child was unwell, but I wasn't able to put him to bed because there were no diapers or wipes in the house. All I could do was hold my upset child to comfort him, and that was when the girlfriend entered, attempting to dictate how I should care for my child. I exploded, exclaiming to her to leave me alone, to give me the diapers and wipes so I could help my child settle down, as he was sick, and to stop playing games with my children. The situation escalated, and it was probably the closest I have ever come to physically harming a woman. Police were called, and one officer sided with me since he had been dispatched previously, while the other attempted to intimidate me, saying that I could not report my wife stealing, even though, while she directed it, she was not the one who acted on it. Since that time, I finally managed to leave that house and experience some peace until I had my wisdom teeth extracted. This had been postponed because, heaven forbid, I take a weekend off for a much-needed procedure. They were decaying and crumbling. After the extraction, I discovered one of my molars had rotted out, which they had advised against. Once that became exposed to air, I endured constant toothaches and was unable to sleep, forcing me to exhaust my paid time off. However, given my negative reputation at work from taking so much leave, due to sick children, my own health issues, my ex-wife's troubles, medical appointments for the kids, and my inability to concentrate on work after the divorce, I was ultimately let go and removed from my apprenticeship just 2 months before completion. I hit a rock bottom and crashed hard. I withdrew from everyone and contemplated ending it all. I was exhausted from everything, and I still feel that way, but I sought the help I needed. My wife then used my struggles as a means to once again keep the children from me, even after I received the needed assistance. I am merely sharing this as a cautionary tale to everyone not to be spineless. Do not be afraid to walk away, as the longer you remain in a toxic situation, the worse it can become. I do not seek sympathy, as I was the one who allowed this to happen to me. I was far too complacent, which allowed a truly manipulative individual to ensnare me and play me like a tune. Do not tolerate manipulation, which is becoming increasingly prevalent in this world. Story 2. This post is for you, Miss Posh Chick. This message is intended for you, Miss Posh Chick. Naturally, I can no longer address you in the same manner as before to safeguard your privacy. I found myself with no one else to confide in, no alternative means to reach you. There are countless thoughts I wish to express, but I have no other outlet for them. Thus, I am writing this here in the hope that you may eventually come across it. I understand that it may not alter anything. I realize we no longer communicate. For a while, I genuinely believed I had discovered my lifelong friend in you. I have disclosed nearly every facet of my life to you, to the extent that everything I engage in reminds me of you. Whether it is the lungi I don, the Instagram reels I used to inundate you with, the Amazon Music playlist I created to share with you and listen to in my car, the South Indian cuisine I savor, particularly my beloved Mangalore buns, or the park in my apartment where I frequently chatted with you on calls each evening, something I eagerly anticipated your enchanting voice and accent that drove me to distraction, and soothed my soul the numerous pictures and videos I captured to share my world with you, the conversations I shared about my daughter, and that salt and pepper beard you often mentioned everything. I have never experienced such a connection with anyone else, and I may never again. You revealed a version of myself that I had never known existed. You requested exclusivity. I have consistently granted it to you from the very beginning, even without your request. I made you my top and sole priority. Every fiber of my being was devoted to you, so much so that now everything else seems lacks luster and excitement. I have genuinely lost interest in everyone else. I have attempted to forge connections with others, tried to distract myself, some of which I even shared with you. But it no longer feels the same. I simply cannot remove you from my thoughts. Although I have always told you that you need not reciprocate my feelings in the same way, you were a once-in-a-lifetime woman for me. At my age, I will never encounter anyone else who fulfills my needs as you do, no matter how earnestly I search. Many might say that I have feelings for you. When one forges a bond with another at such a profound level, feelings are inevitably involved, right? I have never concealed my emotions from you. I have even stated numerous times that I was probably 20 years too late, and perhaps there exists a parallel universe where I awaken beside you each morning. I have consistently acknowledged that in this lifetime, I can only pursue a friendship with you, and that understanding cannot be altered. I am quite direct in that regard. I believe I never overstepped boundaries concerning relationships. Whether you choose to believe it or not, I have lost interest in the illicit activity. You know precisely what I mean as well. It no longer holds the same appeal. I likely engage in it now only once a week, or sometimes not at all. I strive to keep my mind occupied and focused on work. However, I foresee a rather lonely 2025 after the highs of 2024. Remember what I relayed about the astrologer predicting my life would be a roller coaster of highs and lows. Life tried to break me mentally once, but it failed. However, it seems to have discovered a way to finally break me emotionally, and it is succeeding. It happens. I have always been forthright and thoroughly transparent with you. I wished for you to know everything about me. I have shared all elements of my life with you, even those matters that I have never discussed or could never disclose to anyone else. It took me years to find someone as incredible as you. I genuinely believed I had found someone whose presence I could take to my grave. Now, all I can carry with me are the memories we created and those you left behind. I miss everything. I have never experienced much success in forming human connections. Today, I celebrate my 41st birthday. I no longer possess the time, energy, or patience to invest so significantly in anyone else again. I offered you everything I possibly could provide to another person. Yet, in the end, it still proved insufficient to keep you in my life. I feel I have failed once more. This is my conclusion. I have given up. What more could I possibly offer anyone? This regret will haunt me for the remainder of the limited time I have left. I consider myself a very simple person. I acknowledge, as I've stated many times, that I lack anything extraordinary in me to impress people. I continuously strive to become a better individual. During a period when I could have presented myself in any way to win your favor, I chose to be genuine with you. I never hesitated to reveal my vulnerabilities or flaws as well. How I wished we could merely restart, rework, rebuild, and resolve everything that could restore order. I thought that was what you desired too when we last communicated over the phone, but I am uncertain what suddenly caused such drastic changes. I am confident you would agree that perfection does not exist in human connections. Disagreements, misunderstandings, and conflicts are all part of the process. It is simply how effectively we navigate through them that makes all the difference. If only you had encountered me before 2018, you understand why I emphasize that year. Your perception of me might have been entirely different. I completely recognize that you have had to manage your family, career, social life, and everything in between to maintain balance. As an independent working woman, I know your hands have been full. I sincerely appreciate the effort you directed toward our relationship because no one else has invested time in me like you have. I wanted to do everything in my power to make things better for you so that I would not contribute to the chaos. All I expected from you was a bit of open communication to help me understand your perspective. Was that too much to ask? Have I asked you to message me constantly? It was merely that we enjoyed each other's conversations so much, at least I did, that we would regularly reach out to one another. You have mentioned several times that you have endured years of pain. Have I ever compelled you to discuss it? I always allowed you to share whenever you felt comfortable and ready to do so. Yes, I did ask numerous questions in the beginning. I was genuinely curious to learn more about you. I remain interested in your life, your day, and your experiences. Is it wrong to want to know more about someone in whom I am investing so much of my time? I have never claimed to be flawless. I am aware there are many individuals out there superior to me in various aspects. I also recognize that it is not particularly challenging for you to find someone else. You will consistently receive attention from men, whether you desire it or not. The fear of losing you has always lingered, and I have conveyed this to you so that you comprehend my situation. However, I would like to believe that there are not many who truly cared for you as I did beyond your family. What drew me to you was your character, not your appearance, body, status, or achievements. And you understand this. Those fortunate enough to have effortless access to you are lucky. I have had to endure great hardships merely to gain your attention. Only I understand how difficult it has truly been. There have been numerous occasions that made me want to surrender. However, I was prepared to fight through every obstacle that came my way, willing to scale every wall you placed before me, just to reach you, no matter how challenging and painful it was. If I were merely pursuing something else, you know precisely what I mean. As you have suggested, I would never have exerted such effort, as it is far more readily available elsewhere. Ultimately, it appears that all my endeavors were in vain, as I have still lost you. The only offerings I can provide to someone are my undivided attention and time, which I consider incredibly valuable. That is what I have given you in abundance. Perhaps those things are no longer sufficient. Perhaps I am merely another stranger to you. Perhaps you despise me deeply. However, to me, you were, still are, and will always be akin to family. That is how I have consistently regarded you. I allocated you a place in my life that only my daughter receives. This is not something I would express lightly. My daughter is my entire world, and you know precisely what I mean by this. I placed you at the core of my existence. My universe centered around you. Now, how can I merely set everything aside as if nothing occurred and move forward? I cannot comprehend how you manage to do it so effortlessly, but I cannot. Life is sometimes unfair, and that is acceptable. Thank you for entering my life when I least expected it and providing me with a reason to smile once more. I will cherish all the moments we shared for the remainder of my life. Just know that I have never given up on you. My silence does not signify indifference. I am simply taking a step back if it makes you content, as that is what you desired. I am unsure if I ever added any significance to your life, given how effortlessly you seem to have moved on. But that is acceptable too. You made me a better person. I learned many things from you, particularly a few French words. You know which ones. I apologize for wasting your valuable time, which you could have invested in endeavors more aligned with your needs. I suppose you will not assist me with those income tax or investment-related inquiries either. Knowing your personality, you may very well never speak to me again. That is acceptable because there is nothing I can do about it. I am uncertain if you still use Reddit. However, if you do and happen to discover this post, please understand that I constantly think of you, always praying for the well-being of you and your family. Please take care of yourself, your children, and your family. Get plenty of rest, stay safe, eat your meals on time, take short breaks at work, drink ample water, make many friends, and keep smiling. You look truly radiant when you smile. We both possess strong personalities. If you ever find yourself missing me or feel inclined to reach out, please set aside that pride and contact me. I eagerly await a response from you. You know how to reach me. Until our paths cross again, hopefully in the afterlife, if not in this one. Take care. Story 3. Today, my family died in my heart after what they did. Hello, everyone. This will be a lengthy tale, and since I am uncertain about how much time I can dedicate to sharing it all at once, writing on my mobile is exhausting to my eyes, and recalling these details from my life impacts me mentally, I will be presenting it in several installments at a comfortable pace. I hope this does not irritate any of you. I feel compelled to share this narrative with the world in some capacity so that I can leave it in the past and move forward with my life, unburdened by intrusive memories. I trust many of you will comprehend this necessity. I am a 34-year-old man. You may refer to me as Jack, a name I've chosen to maintain my anonymity. I will begin with my childhood because I believe that is where everyone's story starts. I was born into a financially struggling family in a post-Soviet country in 1990. When I say struggling, I mean it from the perspective of that era. We frequently had nothing to eat, and there was often no electricity or gas. I had both parents and a younger brother, who is 4 years my junior. At home, our only source of entertainment was sparring with one another typical brotherly antics. We couldn't play outside with other children because we resided in a hazardous neighborhood, and our parents forbade it. Reflecting on this, I believe it was an early source of my social anxiety. It all makes sense now. Consequently, when I eventually began school, I was more excited than the average child. At least for a few hours each day, I could be in a place that allowed me to feel like a typical human being. Unfortunately, my school experience began on a negative note. I was hyperactive and unruly, making it difficult for me to remain still, which often led to reprimands from teachers. However, academically, I was one of the top students in my class, particularly in mathematics. I was even recognized on the school's honor board, which showcased the best student from each grade, for 4 consecutive years from 1st to 4th grade. Then, around the age of 10, my academic performance declined, but I will elaborate on that later. Since I was an excellent student, my teachers often overlooked my hyperactivity. However, one day, when I was about 8 years old, my teacher mistakenly accused me of something I did not do and yanked my ear forcefully. I was incensed. I had accepted punishments for things I genuinely did wrong, but I was intolerant of unjust repercussions. So, in protest, I stood up, exited the classroom, and went directly home to inform my parents. When I explained to my mother what had occurred, she immediately asked my father to come to the school and speak with the teacher. He promised me that he would handle the situation. Upon our arrival in the classroom, my father confronted the teacher. "Why did you hurt my son? You had no right to do so. If he misbehaved, you should inform his parents. You do not harm him." In that moment, I felt immense pride. I felt supported, as though I had someone advocating for me in the face of unfair treatment. However, that feeling was short-lived. The teacher's eyes widened as she turned to me. "I never touched him. Did I touch you? Why are you lying?" she snapped. This was the first time I had experienced such intense gaslighting. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but she continued her tirade. "Did I? Children, did I touch him?" she demanded, addressing the class in an aggressive tone. Silence. No one wanted to face consequences. "Perhaps if you paid more attention to your child, you would realize he is a liar and a headache for every teacher," she spat at my father. "Instead of coming here with false claims, you should raise your child better." She was seething literally. I still hadn't found the chance to speak when I suddenly felt my father's hand grasp the back of my neck painfully. "Let's go," he said, dragging me out of the classroom. He remained silent all the way home. I was quiet too, embarrassed, ashamed of my inability to defend myself, ashamed that no one believed me. When we reached the stairwell of the apartment building where we lived, he turned to me and punched me in the gut. I couldn't breathe. It felt as if he had struck me with all his strength. Probably not, but it felt that way. "Why didn't you say anything?" he scolded. "I felt humiliated like an idiot because of you." I attempted to respond, but I still couldn't breathe. So he delivered a hard kick to my backside. "Move, you worthless brat." I crawled up the stairs on all fours until I could finally stand again, but by then, I was too frightened to speak. That was the first, but by no means the last, beating I received from my father. It's burned into my memory as vividly as if it occurred yesterday. My wrist is hurting, and this memory weighed heavily on me, so I will continue later. Yesterday, I mentioned that was the first time my father struck me, but let me clarify. It is the first memory I have of him hitting me. I suspect there may have been others, but they are lost to me. My memory is quite fragmented for reasons I will explore later. Following the incident with the teacher, my parents requested my transfer to another class, and the principal approved it. Naturally, a new class brought new challenges. This class was a prime target for bullies. Older kids from 2 grades above would come between lessons and extort money from students. Since I rarely had any money, they began to dislike me, assuming I had hidden something. They would rummage through my school bag while I was in the restroom, occasionally shove me as they passed, and call me a beggar. I was losing my patience, but by that point, I understood that I couldn't ask my parents for assistance. To be honest, I didn't even want to because this was a different situation. These kids were merely 2 grades ahead of me, and I intended to handle it on my own. I found 4 larger students in my class and began explaining how unfair it was that these older kids were robbing us. They agreed, and we devised a plan. The next time the bullies arrived, we would stand together, and if necessary, we would fight. Everyone was on board, and I went home excited for the next day. The following day arrived. We stood outside our classroom when the bullies showed up. They said nothing, simply extended their hands, expecting money. "What's wrong with you? Are you a beggar?" I said sarcastically, knowing we had the numbers. The bully looked at me taken aback. "Do you want to die?" he asked. I laughed. "Are you foolish? We're 5, we'll devour you whole." He laughed in return. "Who's we?" I turned to point at my classmates. Surprise, they had disappeared. Poof, vanished. As soon as I turned back to face the bully, he kicked me in the stomach and knocked me to the ground. His friend half-heartedly kicked me as well and sneered. "There's your we." I had been betrayed and struck in the gut for the second time in my life. I held back tears, went straight to class, and saw those cowards standing there. "Why did you leave me?" I yelled, my voice catching with tears. "Sorry, we got scared," one mumbled. "So from now on, you will be scared of this," I retorted and punched him in the nose. Blood gushed everywhere. I remember it as if the entire classroom was drenched in it, though that was likely just a child's imagination. When the teacher entered and asked who was responsible, no one dared to identify me, not even the boy I had struck. "After school, I'll meet all of you. Don't run, or it will be worse tomorrow," I warned them. And they did come to meet me after school in the yard. "You betrayed me. That means you owe me." From this day forward, you will bring extra change for me, or you'll receive the same treatment he got today, I proclaimed, gesturing toward the boy with the bloodied nose. They did not protest. Sure enough, they began supplying their tribute. It felt empowering. For the first time in my life, I did something to address my helplessness, and violence was the means to achieve it. That was when my grades started to decline slowly and gradually. I will pause here. I also want to express my gratitude to everyone for your encouraging words. They help.